Oh yeah, so might be worth starting with a little bit about me, just so you know who I am and where I'm coming from. But so, technical director and co-founder of Gibe Digital in the UK. So we're an Umbraco agency of about 15 people. I'm an Umbraco MVP as of this year, which is a bit of a surprise. Also an Umbraco certified master and organise, as you said, the Umbraco Spark conference. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about AI and machine learning, and I'm going to be using those terms interchangeably, even though they don't quite mean the same thing. But it's kind of easier sometimes to just call it AI. I'm in no way a data scientist. This isn't my speciality, so I'm coming at it as a developer, not a data scientist. So hopefully that will mean more people in the room are developers than data scientists, so that should sort of play well. And I've been playing with Azure Machine Learning pretty much since it came out in Azure. And I was first experimented with trying to predict horse racing results, which, as I'm still here talking to you and not on a private island, didn't go so well. But it was a really interesting learning experience, so it's really fun stuff to play with. I'm going to be a bit sneaky and just talk 2 seconds about Umbraco Spark. So this is a conference we set up in the UK, and it's aimed 100% at developers. There's just 2 tracks, all about development. So it's kind of like purely developers. So if you're interested, we're going to do it again in March, and it's in Bristol in the UK. But yeah, if you're just a developer and you just focus on the developer track here, this is probably the conference for you as well. So the point of my talk is I'm not going to come out with finished out-of-the-box solutions. You know, here's a module you can plug in, and now your Umbraco site will do all this amazing stuff. What it is kind of like ideas and thoughts I've had around different machine learning APIs that are available. And so that gives you some inspiration about things you could do and try. I mean, I think we saw in the awards yesterday, the National Geographic thing was categorizing images using the Vision API. Stuff like this is kind of like, it gets you thinking. Next time you're on a project, you're like, tell you what, we could use something in the Azure Machine Learning suite to solve this problem. And for a lot of these solutions, the hard work has been done. We're not coming at it like we have to write an API that does something incredible. The work's been done. We're utilizing someone else's work. So if we're very much on the shoulders of giants. So like Microsoft Azure, there's AWS, Google, IBM, and all sorts of other people have written sort of the sophisticated APIs. They've built predefined solutions, and you can go off and use these. You don't have to start from scratch. If we look at Azure, there's like a million. Well, it seems to be an ever-growing, expanding range of cognitive services which are pre-built from vision to language to speech. Really interesting what you can be doing with this now. So, for where I used to look at machine learning, there's basically 3 different things you're using it for. Classification, prediction, and anomaly detection. And they all sound quite fancy, but basically I'm going to try and look at each one of these and try and find an Umbraco problem that I think exists that we could potentially solve, or a problem on a website that we could solve using the machine learning algorithms that are out there. So I'm going to start with classification. So classification is about is about working out what something is. So if you look at the Chihuahua versus Bagel thing, it's like working out which one's which. And this is like a classic machine learning problem. It's like, actually, I struggle. So how's a computer going to do? But yeah, so, and in this example, I'm going to talk about like how we could use it for media libraries and how we could do this. And I've been talking about this for a couple of years now, so you may have seen something like this. This is not the whole talk, so if you've seen this little bit, that's cool. So how can we use AI to improve Umbraco's media section? So when I look at media, I see the media tree, and I think, well, that's kind of cool when you've got 100 images, but when you start got tens of thousands, this tree makes no sense for how do you organize your media. With content, it makes 100% sense, because the websites are a tree structure. Yeah, they're hierarchical. When you come into media, it's like different editors will be placing things in different spots in that tree. What is the standard for that? You know, do you have like blog, this date? There's an image for the blog in here. Do you have like, you know, our stock imagery for the company goes in this folder? And you'll generally find when you come into a media section, having given your lovely site to someone, several months later, you come back to the website, and it's a complete mess. And I was thinking, well, how can you solve this problem? How can you find that exact image? If I come into someone's website as the developer for the website, and I'm like, they're asking me a question, I'm like, oh, let's find a media item. I'm looking through it, I've got no idea how to find this. So maybe we could introduce some sort of search. Now, this would be awesome. So you could just find the image you want by searching for something about the image. Now, there's a problem with this, though, because not every images aren't easily, it's not text. You can't just search the content of this image. It's like, how do you find more information on every image, video, file in this media library? You know, could you go back through, if you had 20,000 items in your media library, is someone going to go back through and add tags to every single item on there? Probably not, or it's going to be, someone's not going to be happy with you if you say you have to do that. So how about we sort of try and tag media via an AI library, and see if we can sort of use that to detect features, categorize them for us, and let's see if that might work for us. So what I've got, what I've done is so if you've not seen the AI stuff before, this is kind of fun. So we kind of upload, let's pick a couple of images. So we can upload those to our, and what this is doing behind the scenes is it's uploading it and then it's sending it off to the Vision API for it to be categorized and tagged. So those 3 images have gone up. My right click's not going to work. I'm using the vagaries of conference Wi-Fi, so I was kind of a bit nervous about this bit. So if I, found a bug in Umbraco as well. Yeah. Hello. Oh, I'm just going to refresh the whole page. Nope. Lost my Wi-Fi. No, Wi-Fi's gone completely. Okay. Fingers crossed. Great. Okay, so now it's kind of where I've just uploaded some images. One of them hasn't worked out yet, but it's kind of given it a name, and we can go into each of these, and the images aren't loading in for some reason, but we go into each of these, and it will have tagged it with categories and tags. And so then, and now I'm really nervous about my Wi-Fi, then we can go into this, and we can sort of actually, let's have an alternative media library where we're facet searching everything. So we can do, I want something with a luxury vehicle in it. And this is going off to an Azure search, which I'm sort of putting it into, but it's kind of like an alternative. This is like a prototype of a media library I've been playing around with, where you could actually find stuff via tags and categories. And so this like kind of changes, it's quite a game changer in like how you'd find something in a 10,000 image library. But what I say is this makes a great demo, but it's rubbish in real life. It looks kind of awesome, it's tagged it, it's worked out what's in the image, but then you upload 400 pictures of cars, they all come up with 99% the same tags. So if you look in here, if we actually get into this media library, if I can actually get in, you'll see the tags are something like, it's all car, outdoor, road, mountain, sky, vehicle, wheel. So it's kind of like, when you upload a bunch of these pictures, they're all going to come up with the same thing. Now, this has been thought about, and so I have a website, one of our clients does taps, and so if you upload all of these into the media library, if we upload one of these, it comes up and it makes, I predicted a lot of them being toasters. I don't know why they're toasters. But so what we can do is we can go into this thing called custom vision, and this is like an extension on that Vision API where you can actually train it yourself. So the built-in Vision API is pre-trained. It's like been done, and it's working out, and it's got a category structure of about 150 odd categories where it's putting everything into. And the tags, I have no idea how many there are, but this one, what I've done is I've sat there and I've uploaded, let's say, 26 pictures. And each one I've just said whether this is modern tap or traditional style tap. So we've got in here, this one's traditional tagged. I don't know if anyone can see that, but this is traditionally tagged, and that one's a modern. So the way you can do this, if I went to train up a couple of others, you can kind of, not that one, add images to this. And I can go into, yeah, I can go and play Civ. No, I go into, what else? And I can sort of say, hey, here's some images, let's upload one of these. And I can say on this one, this is a modern tap, so I'm going to give it that, and I upload that. And that will kind of, you can keep doing this, and you can add more and more tags. And once you've got beyond about 5 or 10 tags of each type, you can then train it up. So you can click this button, train it. And then what you can do is you can, just doing the quick test thing, let's get rid of that. We can go into one of these images, and we can say, hey, is that a modern tap, or is that a traditional tap? And it will come up, and it's saying, it's got a 93.8% chance of that being modern. And it's quite, already it's incredibly confident about how modern it thinks that it's incredibly confident about that, and it's actually quite accurate. And I've done this with, we do Bristol City Football Club, and I did it with different teams in the league, and so they're all different shirts, some very similar, and it was giving me sort of 90% chance of this being right after having trained it with, I was blown away by this. I trained it with 26 images. So it's kind of like it took me 10, 15 minutes to do this. So then you can plug this in to your media library, and this is where the demo guards, I'm hoping, are with me. So let's put this back in. And this is all. And now this should, he says, start using that custom vision library. So when and it should combine the two. So I've kind of built this, there's a module I've already got which is doing the vision API, but I've kind of found that's really impractical on any website where you have images that aren't completely different to one another. So this should, once it's restarted, if I upload a new image, and I go back to that folder, pictures, if I upload one of these, it should, when it uploads, it has to go off to the API and do some stuff, so yeah, okay, cool. I'm hoping. No. It should come back and come and say that was a traditional tap, but unfortunately I think my Wi-Fi is not working great for this. Anyway, so you can train your own model and see what tags you want it to detect. You can use this for anything. So I've done different faces. So I was playing around with, I didn't manage to get it running in time, but having different Umbraco people and trying to work out from this photo who's in it and stuff like this. But you can do it with pretty much anything you can dream of. And you can also do stuff, it will let you do things like pick an area, like say, has it got a number plate in it, and where is that number plate in the image, that sort of thing. So then you can get into surveilling your neighbors and things like this. So. And there's plenty of other APIs around this same sort of, with media or around the same sort of thing. So you can find out, I've been playing around with working out the focal point of an image, and so you can use Image Cropper automatically telling it where the focal point is and trying to figure that out. You can do video analysis, they've got that. So I was working out a custom Image Cropper, so it will do crops for you. So you can just upload an image and it will show you where you crop, suggest crops for different sizes, and it's quite good. Also, like a visual search, so I've been playing around again, you upload something and it finds similar things to that. So it's kind of cool. And also you can start looking at this for content as well. So there's automatic tagging would be an obvious one. So you can start tagging your content, suggesting tags to that content. Automated translation. So I know there's a translation manager that starts using that anyway. And OCR, I know co-chair Paul had a OCR app for this. And so it's kind of like doing translations and reading in content, and you could cut and paste and in across. So yeah. So that's a little bit about how you potentially use classifications. The next one I looked at was prediction and how you could start recommending other content. So it's really easy on an e-commerce store, and we do a lot of e-commerce. So I've picked on one of our clients' e-commerce stores. And what I'm trying to do is how can we use AI to recommend other content on our site? And in this example, the content I'm using is product content. So there's lots of tools for this. So if you want to get into the sort of proper heart of machine learning on Azure, you could use the Machine Learning Studio. I've recently found out this is deprecated now. which is always my problem with Azure. Every time I come to use something, that's no longer the way to do it. So there's also an Azure Machine Learning Service, and this kind of replaces that. And you can use Visual Studio Code or Jupyter Notebooks. If you're a data scientist, you will be familiar with Jupyter Notebooks. But you can, it's super complicated, but yeah, you can use Visual Studio Code, and then you can also use this Azure Databricks, which is incredibly powerful, but incredibly complicated. This is like enterprise scale machine learning. Out of all these, what you end up with is like, once you've trained it, you end up with an API which you can, well, not quite all these, but you end up with essentially a web endpoint you can hit and say, given this data, what do you recommend? How do you recommend other stuff? Yeah, what's your percent likelihood of that being the right thing to recommend? So the easier option is to look at pre-existing solutions and examples. People have done this for you. There's either examples or there's pre-built solutions, and you can just pick these out and then customize it for your needs, or some of these will just work completely out of the box. So for this example, I've taken what's called the recommendation solution, and this is available. Microsoft have built this. It used to be a service in the Azure main thing. Now it's a thing you deploy to like a web app. But it's really interesting, really powerful, and really simple to configure. Well, relatively simple to configure. So this recommendation solution works like this. So there's basically a web app that you have to deploy on somewhere in Azure, and then you have storage, which you put files containing the information you need to recommend, and then also usage data about the website. So we've been tracking for a year now. We've been working out user has clicked on this product, user added this product to their basket, user removes product from basket, user viewed, clicked, purchased, etc. So we have a big log of data that we've built up over. We tried it after 3 months. After a year, it suddenly got good. So quite a lot of data needed. And this data looks like this. So I'm creating this file. So I'm taking a user ID, a product ID, when it happened, and what the type of event was. So we just in here, we're just saying user clicked, user removed from basket, etc. And then the other thing I need is to tell it about my catalog. So in here, I'm saying these are all my products, a little bit about them, name, a category, which I've kind of just blanked as product at the minute. And then you can give it extra information to try and help it in a sort of cold search. So there's kind of warm stuff, which is stuff that's seen a lot of action, something that's been clicked on a lot, something that's been bought with other things. It's really easy. Cold stuff is like, this product is brand new on the website. There is no history behind that. How do you start recommending that? And then it starts kicking into this category and features stuff and using that to try and come up with recommendations. And so then you can configure and use the API. And there's a REST API. Basically, the thing you deploy onto a web app is a web service. And there is a Swagger API which you can kind of go into and have a look at that. And I haven't got open in the tab, which have just occurred to me. So I don't know if everyone's used Swagger. Does everyone know Swagger? But basically, it's a way of viewing your API without, let's get it on Chrome. It's a way of viewing your API without you having to, it's an easy way of viewing and using the API, experimenting with it. Okay. So it looks like this, and it shows you all the operations. So it's a REST API that's deployed, and it gives you this also view, but you can use it just as a REST API. You don't have to go for this Swagger thing. This is just quite useful. So it's got options like you can go and get the models that you've trained. You can post a new model up, and you give it some parameters, and it's kind of got suggested in here. But you give it lots of different parameters, and these are all super complicated, but if you look them up, there's different algorithms you can give it and try it against one another. But it's basically how you configure that. So do you want cold recommendations? How many recommendations do you generally want? What sort of similarity function are you going to use? All of this stuff, there's documentation for it. And I've been kind of going with the fairly vanilla one to start with. I don't know if everyone can see that, so there you go. But it's kind of like there's lots of extra information you can pass in there. And so with this, you can basically put those two files, which I showed, up onto storage, and you tell it, basically train it and say, look at these two files, and then train me up an API. And then you can make requests to that API for recommendations. So you're saying, now I've got product X, give me back 5 things that someone might want having looked at product X. So in the sort of demo I can do with this. What we've got is, this is the website, so it's called Tap Warehouse. So I'm looking at this black shower mixer, and one of the things we know, and this is the live website before the recommendations API, so we haven't deployed it yet. So one of the things I know is when users view a black tap, the thing that they're looking for is probably a black tap. That's like my knowledge, domain knowledge around this. But we have a current recommendation system, which is called Related Products, and this is trying to find similar products using a relation function that we built ourselves. And you'll see in this, we're not even recommending one other black tap. But we know, and we could sort of actually give this hints and say, actually, color is really important when you're viewing a black tap. But when you're viewing a silver tap, it might not be as important. But with the recommendations system, you can plug this in, and then you look at these recommended products, and this is like what the AI is suggesting based on data. So this is, I think, an incredibly similar. I think it's the tap as part of the combination, but also other complementary taps or showers to go with it. So this seems far more accurate already. And this is something that basically I spun up, and I have 2 Azure functions which build those big models up, put them on storage, and then another thing that triggers the training every night. So we just retrain nightly. And it's every day it seems to have got better since they've been doing it. So it builds up more data each time. How are we doing for time? Okay. Yeah, it might be worth showing how you use the rest of this as well. So we're in this. You can actually train multiple models at the same time. So one of the things you can do is you can just get the standard recommendations and you can give it a product ID. But another thing you can do is you can have multiple models trained up. And so what it's possible to do is you can pass in an ID, so you can have multiple trained models at the same time, simultaneously, and you can could basically A/B test those against one another. So you could actually try different algorithms and things like this. So it's really a powerful solution. And this just comes out the box. So this is not, there's no building an experiment and working it all out for you to do. So there's other options. How about what else could we use this for? So we could start suggesting media to editors. So we could be in there, sort of following on from the previous section, we could actually be saying, like, when you're writing this article, here's some stuff out of our library that might be relevant to you. We could start using recommendations for that. We could start using, you might also like on pages. So people that read this blog post read this blog post, or people that are viewing this really like that. So on news-heavy sites, this is brilliant for just getting people engaged in the site and keeping them on the site. Also, stuff like estimated time to read. Quite a lot of AI functions are doing stuff like how long does it typically take someone to read. And personalization, just the infinite thing that is personalization. You could be using this for anything. You could be home pages completely deriving content from what we recommend and what people have actually gone on that have similar functions. So there's another option in this which lets you say, based on my previous history, what recommendations you give me. So I browse these 5 products, now start giving me recommendations on that. And so I start looking at using that inside the basket, so we start suggesting products to people. And so the final one I was looking at is anomaly detection. And this is about I was thinking that we can make sites more secure, but also easier for the users. Typically, security involves making sites massively harder to use. So everything about security is just getting in the way of doing stuff. But it's increasingly common now that passwords are seen as just broken, because either people use ridiculously simple passwords, or if you try and enforce something, they end up writing them down or doing so. So how can you make this easier? So could we make user logins and member logins simpler while also being more secure using an AI algorithm? So if we look at different user member login experiences based on the probability of this being a successful, the user being a legitimate user at the time. And you'll see this PayPal is using this currently. So you have this sort of sign in without any login at all. It will once you sign in on that device and you recognize you, but I think they must be having some algorithm. So when you leave the country, suddenly it's oh, wait a minute, is this person still the same person? So what sort of stuff could we look at? So if we looked at their IP address, we could work out what country and region they're likely to come from. But they might also log in from the same IP address every single time, so that's probably maybe worth thinking about as well. Also, what sort of time do people log in? So if I'm logging into the website every day, I get in at 9 o'clock, I'm an editor on the website, I get in every day, I log in at 9 a.m., do my updates to the website, then like when someone's logging in at 2 a.m. from Kenya, is this the same person? Maybe we should actually sort of score them differently to the person that's doing the same predicted outcome. And we could also look at whether they have the cookie on their browser, so is it the device we recognize? How did their previous logins go? If their last 5 logins have all failed, it's getting less and less likely this is legitimate. Yeah, and like what privileges they have. So we could also then weight this based on privileges. So administrators were a lot more restrictive about how they go, whether they can log in without anything or whether they need more details. So I had a sort of suggestion on this. So we could score their attempt. So let's say we were 98% likely that this person's legitimate based on. So we pump all that into we build a AI kind of algorithm, and we create an endpoint from it, and we say, given this information, here's all the information about this current user's trying to log in. So we just collect their email address, for example. They come along the website, and we say, actually, this looks like completely normal activity. It's the same thing they've done every day for the last 6 months. We're 98, 99, 100%, never 100%, but 99% sure that this is them. We could just log them in. Especially if they've clicked Remember Me or something, we could just put them straight into the website. Especially members or like editors, we could put them straight in. Now, but if we're like, maybe like less sure, this is like an unusual time for that person to log in. They're logging in from home, they're working from home today. Maybe then we're like, oh, this is probably all right, but we're not quite as sure, 75% plus, we could send them the regular login screen. And then how about like they're logging in from a completely different time, different location, device we've never seen before. Let's start showing like reCAPTCHA. Let's put two-factor auth is now a requirement for you to log in from where you are, but we didn't request it previously. And so we could kind of base all our login experiences around the likelihood of this being successful. Cool. And so, yeah, okay. And so this all sounds, related gifts. This all sounds super complex. So yeah, so how do you get started with this? Well, I think the easiest way, the way I found easiest anyway, is go to an Azure. You can create a free account. You can go and experiment with this. All this stuff exists in Azure. There's like the Machine Learning Studio. Even the deprecated one is still there, and it's still really actually quite nice to work with. You can create these existing data sets that are online. If you look up AI competitions, people have posted up these massive data sets for you to play around with. So there's like every movie for the last 20 years, and you come up with movie recommendations. API is a really common one, or restaurant recommendations in an area. So if you go in, go onto those, you can download those data sets, and you can start playing around with them. And a lot of them have like 100,000 or £1 million for the person that comes up with the best algorithm, because they don't want to write it themselves, they want to outsource it. But there is a massive steep learning curve to some of this. So I've started playing around with this a while back. And when you first come in, you kind of use the existing solutions, and it's kind of cool, but then you say, hey, that does 90% of what I want, now I need to get the last 10%, and as ever, that's the really difficult part. But I would start with that, and then you kind of gradually tweak it, and you kind of learn a bit more each time you go. And I've posted some resources that might be helpful for you to look at there. So, yeah, I think that's everything there. Go back one. I should make it bigger. I can't make it bigger. Maybe I can. No, I can't. Yeah, if there's any questions. Anyone? No? Cool.
Are you going to open source any of your experiments?
Yeah, I've already done a module for the media one. I did the Vision API. The search stuff is a lot more prototypey. And it's using Moriyama's Azure search in the behind the scenes. But it's very prototypey. It doesn't really, I've made it look like the Umbraco, but it doesn't actually fit in any of the Umbraco. I think everything needs a tree, and I can't. So it's kind of a bit hacky. But yeah, I'm quite happy to share anything I've been working on. I've been trying to get for today to get the login one, actually an experiment really working in that. It's just like super complicated most of AI is about cleaning your data up. Like that seems to be getting the data in the right format, and then you just pump it through an algorithm that's pre-built. And so the real work for you is getting your data in a form that is nice. So it doesn't like every price, but it likes categorization of prices. So it's like, this is between 100 and 200 pounds or stuff like this. You break it down to 20 or 30 categories maximum. Else you need like billions and billions of rows of data to make it work. But I can open source some of this, yeah. Else? No? I finished a bit early then. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Steve. That was truly incredible.